Hello everyone, my name is Wim Winters and welcome to this practicing session number 61, I guess, if I'm not mistaken. And so these practicing sessions, they become a kind of tradition, and that's something I really like. And if I read your comments right, you like them as well. So that's what we would call a win-win situation, not a win-win situation. That would be really, really terrible to have two wins, but a win-win situation, because these practicing sessions for me are really great. I'm more focused than I would, let's say, normally I should be focused. I should focus as much as I'm doing right now when the camera is rolling or when we do the live streams, but you know how this is. The level of concentration and focus during these sessions are really great, so I benefit from that a lot, and sharing my thought process during these practicing sessions with you is something is really wonderful. So let's continue doing them. Most of these practicing sessions, Monday live 7:30 p.m. at the piano, and Thursday sessions will be recorded in the future. It gives me a little bit more room to play with these sessions, because live, you know, I have to be there, which I don't mind. But sometimes with the kids, with something that happens here, or I have a meeting or something like that. So if Thursdays we can have these premieres on YouTube that enables you to connect with each other in the chat. I will be there if I'm at home at those moments, so then we can hang out a little bit in the chat there. So that's a wonderful opportunity that YouTube provides to all of us. So live Monday 7:30 p.m. and recorded sessions at Thursdays 7:30 p.m. as well, also Brussels time. Today, not Beethoven. Many of these practicing sessions are in the framework of our Beethoven project. That's the project in which I'm going to record, in fact, all solo works of Beethoven, which are, I've made a list of 60, and I have to make that a video for you soon about the Beethoven project. That's coming. Everything is coming. There's a lot going on now here at home, also in my business as an organ consultant with the project I'm doing, and then with the things we want to transfer for Authentic Sound to the new kind of channel. We're working on that. You see things change. We have now the Tuesday standalone recordings. We'll keep that. The live streams, we will add something more to that. So there's a lot going on. Beethoven recording will come. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's a sign I have to play music and not talk too much. So today, Mozart, the third part in this series, mini-series of practicing session on the sonata number 18. That's his last sonata, unfortunately, 1789. The Rondo Allegretto. We have been talking about the Adagio and the Allegro, and also about the fact that I haven't been playing this work for years now, so 8 years at the minimum. And one of the reasons that I had the feeling, at least, that this work fitted the clavichord perhaps a little bit less than, it would do on the pianoforte, which we can try out now, in fact, is partly the first movement, but we have solved that. Middle section was okay, but the third movement, it's a kind of, if you play this piece according to modern rules, this is considered to be very difficult with all the triplets, and so very fast. I've played this piece in the past something like this. Which is not a tempo that's too terrible, I think. But the 30-second notes become very fast. And for the clavichord with this shallow key dip, that's becoming difficult. Not that you cannot play fast on the clavichord, but in this key, with all these very tiny movements, you will feel that the energy coming back from the key while playing forte and that fast is really difficult to control. It's much easier on the piano. So we're going through this rondo again, and I will mess up a lot of notes, I can promise you, because this is not so easy to play, and I will sight read also my fingerings to correct them if necessary, or to adjust them, because there's nothing wrong or right with fingerings. They have to be created in you know, they have to fit your interpretation. Fingerings are a really important tool to kind of fix temporarily, if you want, your interpretation. Not always, but anyway, fingering is something I will make more videos about also. It's a very under exposed and really interesting and really important, I think, subject in keyboard playing. By the way, a lot of historical sources, if you read Immanuel Bach or Hummel or Czerny or you name it, the big names in the authors of writing historical treatises, they all wrote about fingerings extensively. So now we're going through this rondo with the metronome and see what Czerny's and Moschle's tempo for this piece means to my experience playing it on the clavichord. And so I get regularly questions, why focusing so much on this metronome number? Because you obviously are a musician that has talent and fantasy and musical insight enough to make up your own tempo. That's a big compliment and a great question. The reason for that is that if you want to come close to the original source or the original way people played that music, in this case, what we are going to do is try to reconstruct Moschle's and Czerny's interpretation of that Mozart work. It's nothing more than that. The next question is, how did their tempi fit in the context of their time? That's another topic. I think they were very close to the original way Mozart was playing that music. But that's another question. I want to come as close now to what the understanding of Czerny's and Moschle's tempo was for this music. And you can do that by taking the metronome and just trying out their tempi. Those metronome numbers they gave were not distant targets. I cannot repeat that enough because there is a lot of confusion about this, that those metronome numbers are just something, you know, foggy or not really accurate, or the metronome was broken. It's all actually very, very easy to reconstruct. The fact that all these metronome numbers were exact tempo indications, and if you think about it, it just makes sense. Why would they have done so much effort, taken so much time to note down their tempi in a very accurate way, and not just have given some rules of thumbs for those tempi? No, they were very, very, very serious about this. So then you end up with two options. You either have the metronome tick, so connect every tick of the metronome to the note value in the metronome number, or you take two ticks as a unity, as was happening in the in that time, I think, and certainly in previous times. So we have made videos on that, and we'll come back to that as well. So that's called whole beat, as we call it now, double beat versus single beat. So that's up to you to decide. For me, the decision has been taken based on years of trying and experience perhaps, but that's a decision I've taken. Not question that anymore, try to reconstruct that theoretically together with Lawrence Guardian, which is a great journey, sometimes difficult to present to you because it is not easy always to come to the essential point of a long excerpt or a long story that you have to bring in a way that it's understandable for you. So, but that's a challenge, but it's exciting to go on that journey and share that with you as well. So that's part of my work and my interest, but I just have accepted the fact that these metronome numbers are to be read metrically, and so that's what we're going to do today. Let's see. We have two numbers here, Czerny 92, Moschle's quarter note 80, both quarter notes. So Czerny is faster, 92 to 80. We've been talking on that, by the way, in the previous practicing session on the Allegro con brio of Mozart's of Beethoven's third piano sonata, that my tempo initially was around 90, and Czerny and all the others in fact indicate 80, so that makes a difference. Here we have the difference, by the way. I was not prepared for that, which is really cool to see. So yeah, you had this range of tempos that they were not all accurately the same, but still, if you compare the Moshes and Czerny numbers, which were made independently from each other, it's remarkable how close they are. So 90, 82, that's kind of big of a difference, but still somewhere in the range of each other. I think we can all agree on that. Let's try the slowest one first. What you will see, probably, is that, now let's just play. And then I'll come back to that. So a few lines. So the arm is going chuck, chuck. Eighth note, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note. Together one and quarter note and quarter note and quarter note. The metronome indicates the parts of the intended time. The intended time is the metronome number. I made a video on that Melzel instruction video. It's a long video, check that out. It has a lot of things that you need to understand. Chuck, chuck. Parts of the intended time, like Gottfried Weber says about the pendulum in 1814, the Taktteilen. The metronome indicates, as the pendulum, he's discussing his own pendulum way he used that, and the Melzel metronome. And he says the metronome and the pendulum indicate both the Takt und the Taktteilen. Takt is the tactus, it's going up and down. There's no discussion about that actually. That's the meaning of takt in this sense. It's not indicating the bar. The metronome doesn't indicate, doesn't give any clue about the bar structure. Nothing. But that's the signification that modern scholars give to the metronome numbers. It's a taktmesser, so it indicates the bar. No, it indicates the takt, the Zeitmaß, the tempo, the tactus, the schlag, the beat. Whatever you want to call it, that's the historically used meaning of that term, takt. And the takt here is tempo, Zeitmaß. So the metronome number is indicated by the metronome, both the takt and the Taktteilen, the parts of the takt. Together, it gives the takt, and individually the ticks give the parts of the takt. So, but you are here for a practicing session, not to lecture, for a lecture. So I'm more used than a few years ago, of course, to these kind of tempos. So for me, this sounds really logic now. And the reason why Moshes took this tempo was, you know, you have a 2/4 time signature here, which is in that time, as also sometimes in Bach's time already, but certainly in this time, Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, and everything around that, if they write a rondo in 2/4, chances are really big that they meant a 4/8. You can read about that very easily, and I should make a video on that as well. So 2/4 equals 4/8, which means the eighth notes are emphasized. It's a kind of similar use of the 2/4 time signature that you would have when you have an adagio in 4/4 when using faster note values in 16. So triplets in 16s or 32nd notes, then that slows the tempo down compared to the tempo ordinario, so the normal tempo of that time signature. You have that also with the old Allegretto, So only use of 8 notes, one harmonic change per bar. When you add harmonic changes to that and you add note values to that faster than 8 notes, the tempo goes down. That's what the French called mesure à quatre temps vite. So so even though you used this cut time, they didn't mean alla breve anymore. So this is the same with the 2/4. Adding 16 triplets slows the tempo down. So if we start from just a normal tempo to quarter note 60 around, Mozart indicates Allegretto, which is making the tempo a little bit faster. Some sources say the Allegretto is the tempo ordinario, is the average, is the middle tempo. Some sources say it's a little bit above that because moderato is that tempo ordinario kind of thing. So that's up for debate, but I think Allegretto is meant most of the time a little bit faster. So here you would say that from 60 or let's say 66 quarter note much less slows down to quarter note 40 in double beat. I mean, and single beat. He says quarter note 80, by the way. So if you would apply single beat to that metronome number, already there you have an inconsistency because you would speed up from the normal tempo ordinario 66 quarter note 72 whatever, but faster than that you are in the allegro range, and modulus would be above that, though Mozart applied the faster note values. So that doesn't make sense. So from the notation only you can reconstruct the metronome numbers. It's not so hard. Czerny is 92 for the quarter note, which becomes 46. That's a little bit slower than the 60-66 we talked about, so that makes sense. General rule of thumbs, adagio notation like this, it's not adagio, but it's the kind of adagio function the notation has here. You slow down compared to the tempo ordinario 1/3 to 2/3, even to complete the half of that. But then you really have to a notation structure that has, for instance, trills on 30-second notes, so that you really actually are counting in 16ths. Okay, so what happens here then is that the focus Moses gives to the triplets, 16 triplets are much bigger. So he takes that structure as a point of departure, obviously, to enable these note values to be articulated very well, and that's possible now. It wasn't possible in my previous tempo. So structural note values is opposed to ornamental note values. This is obviously structural because it's the foundation of this piece, is based upon these triplets. And so now you tell the story partly by indicating, by giving also the figures and the motives in that. It's not just a line of ornament anymore, it's the structural storyline actually. So I'll try this again in this tempo. We will try Czerny out in a minute, but let's stick to this modulus tempo first. And then I proceed to the second theme and see how this works, because there we get temporarily another structure and see how that works. okay, and then. Sorry. So, this might be a really big shock for you if you have not used to hear music in double beat, and certainly for this piece, it's becoming a totally different story. By the way, you will hear Anya, she's just working on her desk. I'm recording these sessions just in the middle of our daily lives here. So, the second theme, what got my attention actually, is the way this contrasts now to the first. Obviously, that's what Mozart meant, and that's in the composition, regardless of the tempo. But now you can give somewhat more attention to it. So Mozart is great in everything, but he is truly great in taking the risk of building up a rhythmical movement, and then certainly comes to a halt. He stops that movement to start it again, which is an enormous risk because you build up a certain tension and then certainly it comes to a complete standstill. Of course, musically, that's not a standstill in terms of tempo or rhythmical movement, but compared to what was before, it's really striking. Like here also, so you have ya ta 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 ya. Something completely different. Dee-dum, ta-dum, these stories that here he starts again. Also, you get time to make such phrases come to an end. Da ba 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 pam, ya da 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 da, ba da 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 da. Okay, now let's try the Czerny tempo, 92. See what the difference is. By the way, if you try tempi out a ticking metronome helps to remember the tempo while you're playing. So you can have it tick along with your playing, but that's a little bit annoying. It's not bad to do that, by the way. I do that, but then I use my digital app, because when the spring of this metronome is at this end, then it starts to tick not very regularly anymore. So it's a little bit annoying then. But still, it still works, because the regularity of the ticking is something that you would expect. Now it's perfect and it's easy, but if you play in double beat, actually, when you have a little bit irregular ticking metronome, but it's still in time, so that the two ticks together are aligned with what you would expect per minute, then it's still very much possible. It's weird, you have to try this. The best would be a pendulum. Playing with a pendulum is wonderful. It's actually really great. You should try that again, a long time. I'm going to turn off my camera and reactivate it again. Okay. Czerny. Check tempo. Still okay. Like this. I don't think there is a lot of difference between Moschles and Czerny. The difference, it's not so big as in the Beethoven sonata going from 80 to 90, so the third sonata, first movement, the last practicing session. I think going there from 80 to 90 gives the piece really another impact. Here, it is nuanced, I think. The character of the piece doesn't change a lot. It's still gentle in this tempo, uh, very, very extremely friendly, a little bit brave, I would say. Even it's D major, just ya da 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 ti da 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 dum bum yum ya da dum bum da dum dum. So also here it is these suspiratios. Ya dum dum. So Mozart indicates a bow, da dum, and so what he wants with that is an accent on the, in this case it's G sharp 8. I'm singing it too loud, but it doesn't matter. It's just rhythmical effect. Ya-dum, dum. And then he has this dash on the A. Da-dum. So da-dum, bow. With end of the bow needs a shorter note. It's staccato a little bit. So staccato in the meaning of that period doesn't mean as short as possible. Means half of the note value. It's and then you have the dash, so a little stroke on the A. Ta-dum, dum. So, meaning there's a lot of debate about this in Mozart's work. I don't know even a study that there will be studies, but I don't know of them. If you know about studies that talks about the difference in dots and dashes in Mozart's work, I would love to read that. Can be in Neumann. I have that book, made a video on that a few years ago, I think. Look it up. But the dash, in many cases, has a little bit more accent than the staccato note, which is just shortening the note. In Beethoven's work, it's even more complicated because of his handwriting. But here I can see it like this. So here you have this 4/8 structure so clear. It's not it's so all the three notes have on their own way a kind of accent, a kind of place in the bar, in that bar, their own place. So if you would sing that much better than I do, you would be grateful if you could take this time to give this leading those notes to each other, connecting those notes to each other, even though you are disconnecting them by the nature of the articulation. So, and that's what you often see if you reduce those tempi compared to what we are used. It is in the slow parts often that you will feel the most comfortable. It's are the slow movements that are now the more debated for people who think double beat, whole beat isn't a serious topic because the slow movements would become so slow. But it's actually in those slower parts, here also in the second theme, that you can take time and do things that makes the music so much more expressive. And it shows here also. So how to, now the question is how to transfer something we do with our voice, even when I'm singing, so easily. And that to the keyboard, which is, yeah, on the piano much harder than on the clavichord, but still here. Oh my god, that was off tone. That sounds like Glenn Gould singing. Here. Also, these 30-second is Nachschlag, like the Germans say, very friendly and a little bit articulated. Legato on the edge of, it's not da, not aggressively. It should sound piano. So now you hear this harmony. So these movements, these little notes, you make them with the movement of your wrists. The clavichord needs that weight on the F sharp now. You cannot do it will sound aggressively because you have to hit the note harder and harder to make sound. If you want to have it pianissimo, you have to use your wrist a little bit like this. Going up, providing the fourth finger here the necessary weight to make sound, but at the same time already going up to where you end on the D sharp, because that needs an accent. And there you go down, release, and go up again. Go from down up. This is really complicated. It's something that you only can learn over the years. In my course on, I need to update that. The link is below. It's on a reduced price now. Even it's actually ridiculous, because I think it's giving you the essential things of playing musical by, creating or shaping your technique in a way to make you sound musical already. So if I use the arm, the movement of my wrist correctly, it sounds already okay. I don't have to do anything more than that. So no worry about how long is this. It's your wrist. You want to have it longer, you make the movement of your wrist slower. So everything is there, but to control that, to connect that to your ears, and also to your musical imagination, what you need, because a keyboard player is searching for the expression that violin players, that wind players, that singers certainly can do. This is the key. This is your music maker. That is the wrist. And if you do that on the clavichord, kind of right, and you go down to the harpsichord of the piano, those instruments have, also the piano have more difficulties in translating that expressive language into their language. The harpsichord for sure is only timing. The piano has dynamic differentiations, but you can only hit the hammer once. On the clavichord, you hit the tangent and you stay there, which makes it difficult, but gives you that energy also to create that unique tone. So if you can do it here, it will sound different on the piano as well, and the harpsichord. Not to mention the organ. It's not okay. Also here. D sharp. Maybe I'm speeding up a little. Ya da 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 ya da. That's a little bit. shouldn't be playing this in this tempo already. It's not fast, of course, but that's really it's this passage has really been a long time. I forgot totally about these modulations actually. It sounds a little bit Bach-like. This of course not, but this figure is really Bach-like. If I give a little bit more accent, see what happens. Here I'm struggling a little bit, so I should find a way to make a little bit more differentiation between those. So that to differentiate a little bit more, to build it a little bit and see how I can do that. Release of the notes, that's the key. So this last one, da, da, ram, pam, must give. So releasing those notes right, let's try it out. But I think it will give you, it results in more differentiation between right hand and left hand. So soprano and tenor, if you want, yeah, whatever. So, and this differentiation, I think, could lead to a more interesting following up, building up of tension to the return of the Rondo thema. Probably. Is he not returning that? Eventually he should. Mozart, where is your Rondo thema? Here it is, theme. So, it's typical for me. If I don't play a piece for a few years, I completely forget the music until I play it again. And then it's actually a wonderful feature as well. Forgetting something and rediscovering it at the same time. Of course, it's still there. We need to awaken that. Let's try it. Shouldn't be too long, not too long. That's too long. You see how if I make the note too long, the last one, how it drags the music. So articulation, accentuation is key in playing that music in that tempo. Check tempo here, always accelerating a little bit. Now, if you do that, just go from 292 to 96, 98, whatever, and return in the Rondo theme again to your original tempo, you have this range of tempi around this horizontal line of 92, in this case, Chinese tempo. That's fine. I mean, that's what Moschles meant when he wrote somewhere in Schindler's biography, there's a footnote, the metronome number only is for the beginning, meaning you're not playing alone or interpreting the work alone with the metronome. You can study by it, that's no problem, but it's the metronome number is not there to indicate that you are playing like that. You should play like a machine, you know, because humans have a heart pulse, and when music gets a little bit more exciting, you can speed up. Of course, you can do. They can slow down, not in order to be able to play all the notes in cases of ornamentation or things like that. So everything should be fine, fitting in that basic tempo. But you're just wondering, taking your musical journey around this line. How much percentage can you deviate from that original tempo without losing the character of the piece or without stepping outside the style in which it has been composed? That's a great question. That's up to all of us to solve that. I think for Mozart music in this period, still there was a tendency towards rather firmly playing in time, with kind of redundance perhaps of ends of sentences, of course. But if you accelerate here, to make the music a little bit, you know, lift the spirit a little bit and then come back to give this feeling of relief to your audience when the theme returns and your original tempo returns. That's a great moment, regardless of any tempo you take. Great musicians do that all the time, and you have this feeling of coming home again. In the Rondo, it's really important. But I think in Mozart, personally, in Mozart's time and work, don't exaggerate with that. It's not. But from 92 to 96, I mean, that's humanly not even very well recognizable. But now, for the sake of practicing, I want to make sure that I'm not speeding up. Every time an accent. So counter accent compared to 2/4. Even in 4/8, it's on the slow beat, on the weak beat. So, but this gives this nice rhythm. The reeds, okay then. We wouldn't do that in conservatory, Mr. Mozart, but he's actually, this is a passage that was discussed, I remember, in Amsterdam. So Mozart somehow is covering up here, and I agree. So if I practice more, a little bit in this piece, I can be more certain, and I will play this fortissimo rather than just be careful. And then you have this more majestic feel, you know. great experience. So I'm slowing down again. So my tempi used to be a little bit faster than the whole beat or double beat, which is not surprising to me. Oh, wait a minute. I have here, for those of you still here, bonus. I have, of course, my own tempi written down. So the 13th February 2010, I played this work at 112 to 116 for the 8th note. We are talking now, we were playing in Chinese tempo in half beat, single beat, 8 note 92, so I was above that. Then I changed to 112 on the 1st of April 2010, and then the 1st March of that year, 2010, I played what I'm seeing here, in 8th note 92. Seeing this for the first time. So this journey number, I wasn't even aware of that. So yeah, does that make me a genius? I made a video on that. No, it's just if you just take your time, a few months or years to adapt, to absorb these tempi and whole beat, then this becomes a kind of second nature. Still missing things, by the way, but this is a nice coincidence that I have in 1st of March 2010 I played this in 8th note 92. I didn't stick to that tempo, by the way, but I once hit it. So overall I was playing a little bit faster than that, and for the slow movements not even paying attention. So if you go on my channel, the early Beethoven works and the Pathétique, even middle section, is more towards the Talsma interpretation, which I just accepted at the time. Didn't know about Lorenz's work even in 2010, but I didn't read it. You know the story, I started with the Munich sonatas actually here, with this email Lorenz sent to me 15th of November 2009. That was a mail with all the Moschles tempi, and now he gave me the original score. It's on the shelf right there of Moschles. It's unbelievable. So it started there, and then of course since 2 years I'm diving into that work, which is fascinating, and many of you find it fascinating as well, which is wonderful to have you on my journey here. So thank you for watching, being here. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for my patrons. There's a link below and in the description box. If you want to become a patron, you not only you enter a wonderful community. We'll have our monthly hangout on now Saturday, so just throwing in $1 a month even will give you access to that for all your questions and things you want to share with people that are gathering now around these calls, which is really wonderful for me too, to get feedback from you. So that would be wonderful if you just have 1 minute of time to check that out. Next time, Monday, a lot of things are happening, but as planned for now, I'm sitting at the Frenzel with Beethoven, the slow movement of the Adagio. We'll see. If not, I will pre-record that session. These sessions keep me alive because they are structured, they're scheduled. I need to practice, I have to practice regardless of what happens during the week, and there is a lot, as I was saying at the beginning. So regardless to that, what happens, I'm practicing, which is great thanks to you. By the way, last thing, why am I not playing on the Fritz? You saw that Judith was working on the Fritz extensively. And why it's not ready already, people sometimes ask. The instrument is basically ready, but it needs to be fine-tuned. So if you order an instrument from an instrument maker, keyboard maker, clavichord, or piano, you can say, oh, well, deliver the instrument to me. In my case, he wants to have the instrument perfectly fit what my experience or wishes are, without changing the original material, which is a journey we take together. I will play on the Fritz, not record, it's not ready, it's beautiful, and it's like a young horse, you know, it has so much potential. We played the Waldstein on Monday evening, parts of that. The last movement on this piano is really, it will blow your, it's amazing, but it's not ready. It should be ready when I present it to you. So it'll take a few weeks, months perhaps. We'll see. Okay, thanks for watching and see you soon again.